Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. Well, I figured it's kind of due for a channel update. I haven't done one of these things in quite some time, and there are enough events to, I think, justify it. Probably one of the bigger of which is, over the last year or so, you may have noticed I've had about 2 videos a month that I've come out with, which is a bit on the low side for what I normally go for, and there have been a few reasons for it. I just want to mention, interestingly, one of them was actually just technical. Because I'm on a new setup, as you may have noticed, a few months back. Switch over to using an actual video camera. Used to be on a high-end webcam. Still have a microphone, and the audio setup for that, where I was using a decent microphone. I was running into all these problems, and eventually it turned out it was a bad USB hub. But one of the things that resulted in is there were a number of videos I had to record several times, because it would do this really weird thing where it would shift audio rates in the middle of the recording. And so what would happen is the video would just suddenly pitch shift, and the time sync would get horribly off, which made it... There probably, if I had put a ton of work into it, I might have been able to figure out exactly when this happened and cut it, and then... redo it and put it back to, change the audio rate and stuff and put it back together. But in effect, it wasn't consistent, so it was easier to just go and record again. Although it was, in retrospect, kind of dispiriting at the same time. And so eventually I was trying stuff around, and I thought there were various things relating to the software and the setup, and went through things about exactly how I was recording, and even took the... because I use a USB sound card that the microphone plugs into. And I was trying different things and took it out of the main sound system, and on and on. And so eventually... I figured out it was actually a bad USB hub, and when I plugged the thing directly into a USB port, the problem went away. By then, I had lost months and had lots of frustration. As I said, I got the camera. I was recording audio off of onto the computer. So I was using like one of those. Actually, I've got it right here. I was using one of these things. In order, the whole purpose of these, by the way, is to get an audio-visual sync. You get this nice, sharp sound right as the thing hits, and it's very visually distinct. So it's real comparatively easy to line up audio with video. That's the purpose of those clapper boards. If you ever saw the movies, something or other, seen whatever, take 3, thwap. That's what that's for. It's so that you can line up audio and video. Anyway, I was actually doing that and lining up the audio and the video and so on, and I finally... got a flash of inspiration. There's actually an audio monitor on the USB sound card that can plug directly into the video camera, and this way it does the audio sync and gets the audio sync perfectly, and this has made my life vastly easier. There's a few videos ago that I figured that out. So video making has gotten less stressful as a result, because I'm much more confident that I'm going to actually get the results of what I recorded, and also there's just less work involved in doing the audio sync and stuff like that, because unfortunately there's a really annoying aspect too, where the program I use, Kdenlive, in more recent versions, it did not always do its playback perfectly in sync, and so you had to guess as much as possible, then render and see how to do it. Anyway, point being, things are finally all working on that front, so that is out of the way. Another thing that was going on too, actually, starting kind of in the summers, I finally started going to the gym again, lifting weights. I primarily focus on the main powerlifting lifts, because I like them and they're useful. I'm not really planning to compete in powerlifting or anything like that, but I like them for general purpose strength. That's the deadlift, the squat, and the bench press. That's the main powerlifting lifts. So I've been finally doing that, and like anything, when you're getting into stuff and sort of jiggering around your life, it takes a lot of additional mental effort and energy, and it plays with certain things like sleep schedule and so on, and to do this sort of stuff, it really helps to be mentally alert. Doing these videos while tired is not easy at all, and tends to make me very rambly, more so than normal, I mean. And I've actually had videos where I've done that, where I tried when I'm really tired and I get so rambly and so digressive that I don't even bother posting them. Anyhow, so there's that. I'm finally, things are sort of settling down into a basic pattern. how I'm doing with lifting and just things like, making sure I'm eating enough protein and getting enough sleep and so on. All of those things are kind of settling out. So I'm back to being, the amount of mental effort required for that has been going down. Another thing over basically that whole time period is I was working and getting out the second Chronicle of Brother Thomas. That's a second murder mystery. That's I won't go into the whole history of the novels I published, but anyway, so that's actually at the moment that's off to the publisher Silver Empire, and we've gone through edits, and so I believe they're waiting on the cover, and it's scheduled to come out in March of 2020. Sometime mid March, I think, is the sort of tentative plan, and but that took a long time, took a lot of time and effort and energy on my part, going through and getting it, and then because you write the book and then you go through and you read through the book and edit it and then read through and edit and read through and edit, and then once it's in good shape you send it off to the publisher, and then there's an editor there who reads through and then sends you edits and you work on that. So that took a lot of time and energy, and it was a little bit different for me too, because normally I had actually written the first drafts of my books during November. I would take advantage of NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, and so I'd use that to write a first draft, and there are a lot of benefits to NaNoWriMo and that approach, because it's writing a novel in 30 days. You'd plan ahead of time, but you start with a blank page on day one, and you average about 1,700 words a day to hit 50,000 words by the end of it. Or, you can do more words a day for something longer. And the purpose of it is simply to write a first draft. Like, you're not trying to write a finished novel in that time. You're trying to just get down the raw material that you can then tweak and move around and rewrite sections of and so on. But having something, having the story written down in some form is enormously helpful, and a necessary step for the rest. Used to do it that way. And the thing about that, and this one, I didn't do that way. I think I had written something. I don't know if I even started it like that, or I wrote maybe 10,000 words that way, and then it just was not working at all. So I discretion is the better part of valor. I just, okay, this is not working. I'm going to be realistic. I stopped in, this is November of like 2 years ago now. And then I worked on it just as time permitted since then. And one of the things I discovered is that I wouldn't exactly, it's called pantsing, to write by the seat of your pants, from flying by the seat of your pants. That is to say, without having like a detailed plan ahead of you. And that's not precisely how I would write, because for a murder mystery, my theory of murder mysteries is that a murder mystery is a story within a story, where the inside story, the story of the murder, is then told backwards from as you go through the outer story. The outer story is essentially the people discovering and unveiling the interior story, but in backwards order. So that's to say, in the interior story, in order, you start off with causes and planning and plotting, and then finally culminating in a murder, and then possibly some amount of trying to cover it up, or planting evidence, or framing people, or what have you, afterwards. In the exterior story, you start with, possibly, evidence and stuff, but you essentially start with the murder, and then eventually work your way back to who did it and why, and so on. And so I would always write out, because it's not strictly part of the novel, I would write out in order that sort of interior story. I'd think it out, and it's not generally all that great a story on its own, but it's only meant to be an interior story, and it's really interesting when you reveal it piece by piece. So it's not like you would publish that interior story as like a novel on its own, but I would write it out, so this way I had the whole thing and it all made sense and everything held together. And then I would not, however, like outline and plan out that sort of exterior story. That I would more or less pants. And the thing is, in the context of writing the entire first draft in November, that would work. It worked fairly well to do that. I mean, I tend to have I would have a basic sense of where things are going, And it was relatively straightforward to just keep things moving along in the correct sort of way, pardon me, as I would write and so on. And I didn't have much trouble with that. And part of it is, if you're writing, 1,500 to 2,000 words a day, because your output's almost never exactly even day to day. But, if you're writing, anywhere from 1 to 3,000 is sort of more realistic, words a day on your novel, you have, on day 29, the beginning of the novel is only 29 days away. And, on average, it's, stuff you're referring to and need to think about is only, a week away at most. And your head is very constantly in the story. And so it works pretty well. What I found is when I might only have 1 or 2 days a week in which I had any real amount of writing time, that I would spend a lot longer getting my head back into the story. It was much harder to remember things because I might have written them a month ago or 2 months ago. And just to get all the characters' voices in my head and so on was much, much harder. And so eventually, like about 2/3 the way through, I realized I'm spending so much time out of every writing session just getting my head into it, refreshing myself as to where I was. I need to be more organized than this. And so I spent some time just sitting down, went through, and instead of writing, I then went and outlined what was going to happen in the rest of it, in the rest of the story. And then that helped tremendously in terms of writing the individual scenes and so on. There's still the issue of getting the characters' voices in your head. Anyway, so that was a very long, protracted process because I was figuring out some things about this new workflow, about only having, a few hours here, a few hours there, half an hour here, in order to actually get the writing, to work on the writing. And so that took a lot of my time and attention during that time period as well. So, in the same way that the previous two things are, have sort of sorted themselves out, I'm going to be starting on the third chronicle of Brother Thomas before too long. I'm taking something of a break from it because I've got some other programming projects I wanted to focus on for the moment. I'm a programmer by trade. That's my day job and how I earn my living. But and so just the result of having that skill is that I also will then use it for other non-work related stuff. And so anyway, I've got some of those things that I'm taking a little bit of time on, but I'm going to be getting back writing. I've got the basic setup and the murderer and victim setup for the third chronicle of Brother Thomas. I'm not going to give away who the murderer is, but the setting is actually, it's going to take place in a camp resort in the Adirondack Mountains where there isn't internet or cell coverage or even electricity. And so it's a fictional place, but there are camps like this in the Adirondack Mountains, and I'm sure other mountains throughout the United States. So that's going to be a lot of fun because it's going to have some retro elements because there isn't going to be much technology around, and it's going to be very, very remote and so on. So it's going to have a little bit of a different feel and should be a lot of fun. It should be a really, really fun setting. So I'm looking forward to getting into that. But when I do, having learned my lesson already, one of the things I'm going to do is, in addition to writing that interior story forward first, that's still going to stay. That's normal. I'm also going to go and put together an outline of the story. Because this way I'll be able to, when you're doing an outline, you can do that relatively efficiently because since you're not focusing on the minutiae, you're getting things moving along, and you can remember it all and sort of keep it in your head, which makes it vastly more efficient. Then once you have that out, and when I say outline, I mean things like day by day, time, what I need to do at least, individuals will vary, is day by day. And, so on this day, and then I'll write out the times, and at this time they go here, and at this time these people do that, and this time this person does that, and at this time they talk to here and find this thing. Stuff like that. And I find that I need to get those, the things temporally, because the time really matters in terms of, how long do things take and so on. And that's about the right level of detail for me. So figure that stuff out over however many days the mystery will actually take to run through. And then once I have that outline, then I'm going to jump into actually writing stuff. And at which point it should go much more smoothly. So, it still takes a lot of time and mental effort to write a novel, but at the same time, it should be a lot better than it had been. So that shouldn't be as much of a problem going forward once I'm getting into that. And so just sort of finally like looking forward. So that's sort of what had been going on and some of why things came up. Looking forward, I've got a whole lot of ideas. I've got there's a file on my computer I open up whenever I get a video idea and write down like the basic idea for the video, and it's got like 20 something entries at this point. Like fairly soon, I'm going to be doing a video on Disney's movie Frozen, which is surprisingly Christian. I really don't believe they intended it, but there's really very, very Christian themes in it. Sort of central to it, actually, which I think they sort of hit on by accident. But so that's something very interesting that I want to talk about soon. I got a request, actually, for a video on Occam's Razor. I plan to get that one out fairly soon as well. So that's some of the stuff, hopefully coming up in the near future. I've got a lot of video ideas on different things. I do hope to get back to reviewing some music as well. That's talking about particular songs is something that I very much enjoy. Those are almost always scripted videos, because they really need it. And scripted videos are still, they're much better than just impromptu videos, but unfortunately they're also a lot more work, because there's the writing out of the script, and then I have to perform the script, and then I have to go through and, there's audio editing that I do to take out coughs and pauses, and, if I said something not quite the way I really wanted to have said it, I'll stop and say it again. So I have to take things out and so on. So there's a lot of stuff. It's just, a scripted video is like 5 to 10 times as much work as one of these is, which is why I do so many more of these than of scripted videos, even though, even people who don't like my stuff say that the scripted stuff is better. Just obviously it is. It's kind of clear. So, I'm very well aware the scripted stuff is much better. It's just really, really hard to get to. So, anyway, so that stuff is planned. It is coming. I've been doing this for years now. I'm in this for the long haul. So, the last year or so was a bit on the lower production side. I am both hoping and expecting to get into higher production. If I can hit one video a week, that would be really nice. I'm hoping to. We'll see exactly what I get to and so on. As I mentioned before, having at least ironed out all the technical details, I'm now in a much better position to be able to at least get this sort of video out quickly and easily, and doing it with one take rather than having to go and redo an entire video. So, that stuff. I'm also, I haven't had a lot of time, just owing to various situations, to get out and do archery. And I'm hoping to put more time into archery. And something I might do some videos where I actually take the camera along and just sort of talk while shooting. And it's a nice relaxing activity and so on. So we'll see if I manage to get that done this year. And if not this year, next. There's, always next year, God willing. And so we'll see. And yeah, in total, that's kind of where things are and where I'm hoping they're going to go. I love that description. Well, in one of the letters of St. Paul, he describes God as he who accomplishes all things according to the intentions of his will. And I love that description of God, and I especially love that description of human beings, by contrast, because we never accomplish things according to the intentions of our will. Just never works out that way. And I certainly am no exception to that. So that's what I'm hoping, at least. We'll see what actually ends up happening. The world's a big and complex place, and we don't control it. We just kind of ride it and trust in God and do our best. So, until next time, may you hit everything you aim at.